Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining today's webinar on the clinical trial design memory. I'd like to review a few housekeeping items before we begin. Everyone will be on mute for the remainder of the webinar. If you have any questions, please submit them via the sidebar, and our speakers will address them once the session is over. Today's speakers are Lior Keat, Vice President of R&D at Highpoint Solutions, and Jim Goldfinger, Vice President of CVN and Strategic Relationships at Highpoint Solutions. Without further ado, I'll pass it over to Lior. Lior?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. This is Lior Keat from Highpoint Solutions. Roman, if you can proceed to the next slide. So for today's agenda, what we would like to do is cover down on a couple of key topics. First, at the onset, in terms of the discussion kickoff, we're going to facilitate quick introductions and then cover down on meeting objectives. At that point, we're going to just do a brief overview of Highpoint Solutions in order to afford everyone on this call an opportunity to learn more about our organizations for those people that are not familiar with Highpoint. After that topic area, we're going to turn things over to Jim Goldfinger, who's going to be really talking about kind of the technical architecture and perspectives relative to the memory design solution that we're going to be sharing with you all today. Roman is going to be leading the demonstration, and then towards the end of today's session, we're going to provide an opportunity for a short 10-minute Q&A and wrap up. Next slide, please. Next slide. So everyone, again, my name is Lior Keat. I'm the Vice President for the Life Sciences R&D practice for Highpoint Solutions. I come to you with over 15 years of experience in the R&D life sciences domain. Recently, we actually wrote a white paper on this topic titled Capturing and Leveraging Clinical Trial Design Insights. And we definitely would welcome everyone to have an opportunity to review that document. Jim?
Yeah, Jim Goldfinger, and I've been in the enterprise software industry for the last 30 years, and with quite a bit of that in life sciences. And I think what I'm excited about is how, at least in this particular case, leveraging a platform that was actually built for a different purpose and more on the CRM side, and how it's so agile, and our ability to apply that in R&D, and certainly excited to go through that with you. Great. Next slide.
So in terms of our objectives for today, we're prepared to meet the following key areas for today's session. First and foremost, we would like to provide an overview of what we believe are the current dynamics and challenges associated with clinical trial design. Secondly, based on our recent success at AstraZeneca, highlight the capabilities of Salesforce.com as a platform to address these challenges. And Jim and Roman will be talking about those topics in further detail. And then lastly, answer any questions that you might have in order to clarify the key areas of interest specific to the design memory solution, and discuss possible next steps either during today's session or as a follow-up. Next slide. Next slide.
Yeah, I think you've got a delay on your end, Lior. We're now on 7.
Okay. So in terms of Highpoint Solutions, just covering a quick introduction, Highpoint focuses both on the life sciences as well as healthcare domain. Although we focus predominantly in the IT area, we have a broader knowledge of both also business and process elements. We're very much a data-centric consulting firm across all practice units. Within the life sciences domain, we're very much aligned and oriented to how you would typically see a life sciences, biopharmaceutical, as well as medical device organization aligned. In terms of our practice, the research and development practice, we're very much focused across the data lifecycle from protocol design through submission, and providing our clients focus in terms of better enabling their technology as well as business practices to allow for easier transition of data throughout the life cycle within R&D. On a similar front, we have technology practices that support the business practices noted above. For today's session, we're going to be really showing how both the life sciences R&D practice as well as the Salesforce practice collaborated in order to provide a solution to the market. Next slide. So this kind of highlights our experience in the market relative to the clients that we support. We both focus on the top 50 market as well as mid-sized and emerging pharmaceutical organizations. One of the things to mention is when we're looking at providing solutions to the market, as we will demonstrate later today, we very much like to leverage existing technology platforms when at all possible and reconfigure them in order to support other use cases, in this case around the clinical trial memory design tool. Next slide. Jim?
Sure, thanks. Yeah, I would, as I was saying earlier, and as Leo just commented, and we're hearing this from our customers as well, right? They don't want to bring in new technologies as much as they want to leverage the investments they've made. In this particular case, the challenge was the need for having insight and visibility to work done in the past. In the case of clinical trial design, we would call it design memory, or I would call it institutional memory, right? That we do work, we collaborate with teams. In the past, the method of capturing the data was highly disparate, right? So SharePoint or email or docs in one facet or another, and the problem is, I call it long-term and short-term memory, right? In the process of a design, if you have resources that sort of jump in the middle, it's really hard to get up to speed immediately. What's been done, what decisions have been made, and so forth. And then subsequently, let's say we create a new design and it's similar to something we've done in the past. We don't have an easy way of determining the lessons learned. So we end up, reinventing the wheel, if you will. So there have been studies out there that sort of, certainly point to this. So the challenge is, how do we create a mechanism to capture this memory and access this memory in a way that is not too laborious for the users, because they still have to do their day-to-day job, and then make it valuable for what I refer to as the short and long-term memory. So the solution that we're going to take you through today, I like to think of this light structured umbrella over an otherwise unstructured process, right? So different things happen at different times, different types of content, sometimes we're even whiteboarding some capabilities and so forth, and how do we create a semblance of order so that we're not reinventing the wheel? Next slide, please. So we talked today about clinical trial design, but as we started talking to a number of customers and presenting a solution, we've unearthed, if you will, other applications for the very same framework, right? So if you think of the framework as I described it, right, a loose, structured umbrella over an otherwise unstructured process, what we found is, as folks are seeing this, they're thinking that the wheels are turning. It's like, hang on, there's a lot of things we're doing today where this could add value, because there's a number of types of projects. Could be product development, could be project or program management, IT project management. There are a number of applications, and what we're excited about, as I mentioned before, is we're taking a platform in Salesforce that has so much flexibility and agility and so much built-in innovation that, when you talk about not reinventing the wheel, the kinds of things you're looking for, are built in, and they're spending billions of dollars putting that in. So to build from scratch is, to me, now a thing of the past. When you have a platform that is that agile and has all the elements you need for success. So next slide, please. So we talk about Salesforce as a platform, and I've shared with many of my friends at Salesforce that the biggest challenge they have going for them is the name of the company, right? And for those of you who are on this call who may work in the R&D office, you know, when you hear Salesforce, I'm sure you think of CRM, right? Customer Relationship Management, Sales, Service, and Marketing. Why are we talking about Salesforce here? But if you look back at the history of Salesforce, the original plans were to develop something that small companies could use. And what do they need? They need something that's incredibly flexible, that they can add as they go. You don't need a lot of IT support. They put it in the cloud, and frankly, that was also a challenge for large companies in the early days, right? So large companies did not adopt Salesforce because of concerns around security, scalability, performance, and so forth. 15 years later, and you know, $5 billion worth of revenue suggests that they've overcome that, right, in a big way. So government agencies are using it, so they really have stood the test of time across those key dimensions, and now we get to take advantage of what the original intent was, right? Make it flexible, make it agile. They've certainly come a long way. Mobile, right? The externalize, you know, what you're doing, right? So everything they've put into the infrastructure is goodness for all of us, right? Anything you could think of is typically available to us because they're, you know, solving the business cases of so many thousands of companies out in the field. And when they first came out with this concept of using the platform to build applications, I was certainly suspect. I was working for another enterprise software company, and I thought that, you know, it doesn't make sense to me to start with another proprietary environment. But now, you know, I'm a complete convert because I've seen how quickly we could create whole new applications. And I'm sure you're wondering why there's a picture of a Palmolive soap in this particular slide. And I like to use the analogy for those of you who may be old enough to remember the old Palmolive commercials in Madge at the beauty parlor, right? And she said, you know, you're soaking in it. And my point about that is that in big pharma or small pharma, there is a near monopoly in the commercial area. That's Viva, right? So for Salesforce automation, Viva has become the standard bearer. And Viva use the same technology of the Salesforce platform to build their applications. So really they've proven that all those things, right, scalable and highly secure performance and everything else, as well as the power of the platform itself to build a complete application. So for, I would say, most if not all of you, you're already soaking in Salesforce by virtue of the fact, or at least your organization is, by virtue of the fact that you've likely deployed Viva or considering Viva and so forth. So we're just sitting on top of that and benefiting from being able to mobilize. And again, if you think about, for those of you who've been in your field for a number of years, you didn't, you know, it's now time to rethink what technologies are out there to help us. And when you can walk into a meeting with an iPad, last year you walked in with a laptop, this year you might walk in with an iPad, you might take a screenshot, you might use the whiteboard. Well, now with that iPad, I could take a picture and attach it immediately to this record. So again, we have such powerful tools at our disposal to build out the capabilities we need to add tremendous organizational value without being an impediment on the users and getting their job done day to day. So I mentioned in the previous slide about the other scenarios that have surfaced when we do these demos, and they see this framework. Just keep in mind that everywhere it could be, it is what we call soft-coded. Soft-coded means the categories you're seeing can easily be changed on the fly. The field labels can be changed. So think of it as much for the structure that you're seeing as the, you know, don't get caught up on what the categories say or any of the wording on the screens. Just think of the fluidity of it and how that could be used, whether it's clinical trial design or any other long-term collaborative you know, type of work effort that you have in your teams. Okay, I think with that, Roman, we're ready for a demo.
Yep, thank you, Jim. I will now jump to this system. So hope everyone can see my screen. Hello, everyone. I'm going to do a short demonstration of clinical trial design tool. So as Jim mentioned, today this tool is built on top of Salesforce platform called force.com or Salesforce One, and is totally configurable based on customers' requirements. This tool helps, so within R&D department for managing clinical trial design process, so this tool helps to first collect, gather, and structure all the content that is being used and discussed during the design phase, helps people to be accountable on every decision that is made within the design phase and later taken to the study summary and for approval to the management or to external authorities, and also reuse the knowledge that you gather during previous design phases and utilize that knowledge for building other phases or other clinical trials in your organization. I'm now logged in as a person working in R&D department who is responsible for designing different clinical trials. On the home page, I can see all my activity log. So this tool is bidirectionally synchronized with Microsoft Outlook, so whatever you plan here is automatically visible in your Outlook calendar and vice versa. So this tool helps not only to build a knowledge base, but also manage all the activities around building that knowledge base and building clinical trials. So whenever you have a task to your colleague, to an external person, or you want to schedule an event or a brainstorming session, you can use Salesforce capabilities for that. And once a user logs into the system, he or she can see that, let's say, I have a meeting scheduled for today and 2 meetings scheduled for tomorrow, and here are my overdue tasks, and here are the tasks related to different clinical trials that I have to complete by a certain date, provide some additional information, some comments, make a decision, and so on. So this tool organizes together both knowledge and activities around that knowledge. All the information in the system is gathered within a program. So a program is a collection of clinical trials around one particular product or molecular or drug that we are developing. On the program page here, I can see all our running programs and clinical trials within these programs. And let's go to Tamiflu for influenza treatment program. A bit of description of this page. So here you can see a descriptive information about the clinical trial program. All these fields are fully configurable, so wherever you need a new field, it can be easily, without no coding, put into the UI. On the top of the page, you can see design elements such as objectives of the clinical trial, measurable endpoints, are we going to use any competitors, how are we going to design the study, what is the optimal dosage, where are we going to conduct clinical trials in different countries, regions, and what should be our population categories for this particular trial. So these categories are fully configurable, so and we are using these as some like default preset categories. And they are used for capturing and structuring all information that you are bringing from outside over the internet, discussing in a room, doing some brainstorming sessions, speaking to KOLs or external authorities, and then processing it internally and building decisions. Why are we going to make this clinical trial this way? Are we going to include different options into evaluation, exclude some of them, explain why we are excluding them from evaluation, and so on. Below, we can see a timeline. So the timeline is a fully interactive way to understand when the decisions are made, who was the author of those decisions, what was like the knowledge collected behind those decisions, and are there any documents supporting those decisions. And you can literally scroll back and forth in time and understand who was making those decisions at that time. And if that person leaves a company, you can easily, in this tool, understand what was the knowledge collected, what were the files collected during that discussion a year ago, and why at that time we have decided to go this way but not that way. We will come to this timeline a bit later. So below, on the program page, I can manage different clinical trials. So for example, if I'm building a clinical trial protocol for phase 2, I can reuse some knowledge that we have collected during phase 1. And again, if I'm going to design a phase 3 and waiting for the results from phase 2, all this information can be categorized and stored in one system, in one unified environment, and reused while building new studies and new versions. For every study I am building, I can create arms. So an arm is a set of different decisions in different categories, let's say location, population, and dosage, and include multiple arms in one study and provide them for review and approval to the governmental authorities. Notes are our unstructured pieces of information. So whenever you find an interesting article on the internet, or you want to share some of your thoughts and ideas to your design team colleagues, or you have written meeting notes after a brainstorming session, you can send them to the system using a predefined email address. So you do not even need to log into the system. So you just send it to a predefined email address and it converts to a note in the system. And a note can be, as you can see here, either like a meeting note, an email, or a link that I want to share with my colleagues. And then you are structuring notes into what we call information item. So an information item is an abstract of the external piece of content processed and discussed internally, and is a sort of a decision that is made around a certain point, around a certain topic in a specific category, such as dosage, population, location, design, or whatever you want to use for categorization of your decisions. Below, under the notes section, you can see all our information items or decisions. So this is what we have already agreed in dosage, in design, in our objectives for a clinical trial, in our measurable endpoints, in location. So you can see that we have agreed to conduct a study in USA. For the population category, so this is our desired population category, male or female volunteers 18 to 40 for this particular clinical trial program or study, and so on. So you can have lots of different decisions in different categories, and you can play around, sort them, and build different study protocols for your particular phases. Below, you can see activities. So what has to be completed and what was done in the past. And whoever joins your design process can easily understand who was doing what. I can see that someone was designing phase 3 study protocol. There was a meeting session in Delaware, and we have still to prepare some documents for FDA and ask and gather some additional evidence for patient population. For those users who are not able to gather face-to-face and run a brainstorming session in a room, this tool offers discussions. Discussion is like a Facebook-style thread where everyone can express their ideas. So let's see, we are discussing here population ideas. And here you can see that different people are asking different questions, suggesting to vote for different inclusions or exclusions to our population categories. Some of them may share different images or charts or files, and others can suggest their ideas. I can make some comments for that, and on the right side I can see all the files that are related to this particular discussions, to this particular discussion, and also all our activities. So within this discussion we need still to get some evidence, and we have already discussed inclusion of a certain population category into our phase 2 study. Going back. Also, on the timeline, you can track the milestones. So milestones are important key deadlines or dates that you have to be aware of while you are designing a study. Either it's a global internal meeting or a deadline for submission for approval for this year to FDA or whatever you want to track. You can set those milestones in the system and they will be visible on the timeline. Not only you can include your internal team into the design process, but also external organizations. So they may be external laboratories or partner pharmaceutical companies or governmental authorities who are contributing into the design process. And you can keep track of them here in the accounts and team members section. Going back to the timeline, it's all interactive, and you can see that I can see all the milestones, notes, decisions, or information items, discussions, and activities on the timeline. With vertical red line, I can see all my milestones that we should meet during the design phase and all the decisions that were made. So if you look on the, let's say, endpoints lane, you can see that there was a decision made on May 18, or I can scroll back in time. In objectives lane, I can see that a decision was made back in April this year, and it can go down to, I don't know, 1 or 2 or 5 years back. And so this timeline helps you to understand why these decisions are made, who was responsible for making that decision, and trace all the knowledge behind every decision you made during the design phase. Let's imagine that we have shared a link to an FDA website, and we want to share with our team members different files that we have gathered on FDA website. So I'm now looking on the node page, and here I can see the link that I want to share with my colleagues, but also I have included 2 files that are stored in Salesforce internally in specific folder in library and accessible for all users who are responsible for the design phase. And you can easily preview all these files, and if this file supports the decision that was made in a particular category for particular study, it will be automatically linked to that information item or decision, and everyone who wants to understand why we have decided to go that way can read all the knowledge, not only the discussion in the system, but all the supportive previous studies, research papers, different reports from hospitals or laboratories, whatever. And all of them are stored here in the notes section of a clinical trial program. Going back to our timeline, let's imagine we have just had a meeting in our office, and we have decided to include these patient categories into our clinical study design, and also exclude these groups from evaluation and we have supported them with evidence from external research papers that are attached here. And I want to make a decision that we have decided to go this way, and here is why. So as I have filled in a meeting note straight in the system, I want to create a decision, and everything I have to do is just to highlight a piece of text in my meeting note and click on the Create New Information item and say that so I put the date when the decision was made, I put the author of that, and I say that this decision relates to population category. And also, if you remember, there were 2 files that were supporting those ideas that we have discussed on the meeting, and here I can pick that one of them supports this particular decision, and I click Save, and it automatically creates a decision in a specific category. And now, if I go back to our program timeline, in the population category, I have this decision made on July 23rd, and I can see the author, and I can see all the description of that decision. And if I drill down into that decision, I can see the file. I haven't attached that file to this particular decision. That file was a part of a meeting note where we discussed multiple things. But as this file relates to the evidences around this decision, it's now visible here. So this is a decision that we have made. It relates to a category called population. Here are the files, or a file that supports this decision. And below, we can keep track on all the, what we call like breadcrumbs. So that decision was made based on the meeting note that was made in like June this year within this clinical trial program. And once you are submitting a study protocol to the management or to the external authorities, and if they are asking, why have you made this decision, you can easily go to the timeline and scroll back to the date when the decision was made and read all the knowledge behind that decision. This tool also helps you to build different printout forms of a study protocol. And let's say I want to build a study summary for version 2. And it will be a summary. I create the author, so I'm filtering the author and all the categories that we have discussed. And here are all my decisions that were made during the design phase. I'm selecting those which I think are important for this particular version of the study, and adding them and saving a study protocol. And now I can generate a Word document from the system based on your template. So this one is like pretty standard, but we can easily include your template into the Word template. And here you can see the description of the study, what we want to accomplish, and all our categories and all the decisions and the supportive information around each decision that was made during the design phase. And this document may be designed based on your guidelines, and it may be like generated with like one click from the system, and you can easily send it for approval or review with the management or external authorities. This is everything I wanted to show you today. If you have any questions, I am ready to answer them.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Roman. That was great.
Thank you, Roman. Yep. Roman, if you could proceed to the next slide, slide number 15, and then we'll start opening it up to questions, please.
So do you want to speak to this in terms of what we could possibly do before we take questions, Lior?
Yes. Yep. So just a couple of points just to echo what Roman and Bill shared. Right. What we are seeing today is a high degree of manual process efforts as it relates to clinical trial designing, and as a consequence, organizations are contending with, or I should say are being challenged with, how do they drive efficiency with the clinical trial design efforts, again, prior to the protocol being drafted. And typically, when organizations pursue a study design that could span months, if not in some cases years, and still following a manual process, it could be challenging for organizations not only to retain their institutional knowledge due to team transitions or due to any type of organizational change, but also because, as organizations are looking to design new studies, they may want to leverage retrospective data in order to inform their prospective thinking. So we believe that, in terms of next steps for this discussion, if you choose to do so, you can definitely reach out to us for further discussion where we can meet with your clinical operation business leads. In addition to that, we can drive a conversation around awareness, specifically addressing what the challenge is, and more importantly, how to potentially solve it. And then lastly, what we believe is a concept of a readiness assessment. In essence, a small conference room pilot with key initial constituencies where we can leverage the tool that you saw today and overlay your data into it to actually see the utility and the functionality of this solution. So at this point, I want to pause and just to see if there's any questions from the audience for either Jim, Roman, or myself.
Jenna, before you surface those, one point I think we probably should have mentioned, Lior, is what is the typical size of a project? And we talk about next steps here, but just so that you know, this tool was built, and this is one of the things that, I was talking about how powerful the platform is. This was built in a few short months, and in days gone by, something like this with the type of back and forth and iterative process may have taken at least a year, at least certainly 6 months to a year. Moving forward, if this is even close to how it could be used in your organization, this could be deployed in as little as 4 to 6 weeks. If it's a good framework, but you see a fair amount of adjustment, that's that readiness assessment. Maybe it's a 2-month exercise, 3-month exercise on the outside. So these are it's very quick to bring in. It's very quick to configure to any organization's needs. So I just want to, for anyone who's thinking about, yes, but what does it really take to implement something like this? We're talking about, pennies on the dollar, if you will, in time compared to what previous generations of technology afforded us. Okay, with that, Jenna, maybe you have some questions?
Thank you, Jim. So we do have a few questions here. The first one says, this looks like a very useful tool, but I'm not sure our organization would be willing to pay the per user license cost to put something like this in.
Okay, I'll take that. So yeah, very good question. And I know a lot of folks that I mentioned earlier, if you have Viva, you're soaking in it. And whether you've brought in Salesforce for CRM, so maybe call center, or in the case of non-pharma like medical products company and so forth, maybe using Salesforce for sales or service, there's a certain per user fee for that, and it's it's in the probably $1,000 to $2,000 a user per year. This tool was built on the Force platform, and at that level, the licensing is in the 10% range of a full license, right? So it's a significantly more cost-effective platform when you're building from scratch and you're not using CRM. It's much lower. And for many clients, they may already have licenses for the platform from Salesforce where there'd be no incremental charge. But just to be aware, it's not the same price point, significantly less than what it would cost for a full CRM user.
Great, thanks, Jim. The second question that came in was, could this be integrated with other enterprise applications like SharePoint, which we are already using to store much of our content?
Roman, you want to take that?
Yeah, sure. So, I haven't mentioned that. So yes, of course. So this tool can be integrated with SharePoint or other document management systems, and moreover, Salesforce this year have released a connector called Salesforce Files Connect that can integrate Salesforce with SharePoint for document storage, and while you are still storing all your documents that you are using during the design and build phase of a clinical trial in SharePoint, they may be visible as web links in Salesforce. And also Salesforce offers this like federated search, so whatever you search in Salesforce, the tool will search both in Salesforce and in SharePoint. And if it finds a document in SharePoint related to your search query, it will pop you up a message that here is a file in SharePoint in that folder. So yes, it can be integrated with SharePoint, and if anyone is using other document management tools like OpenText, there is an already like pre-built connector for those types of content storage or like document management systems as well.
Thanks, Roman.
Thanks, Roman. Question 3, is it possible to include external parties into contribution and design phase?
Hi, Jenna. Yes, I'll take that question. The short answer is yes. So typically what you would see within the Salesforce platform is this concept around communities. And what we're very sensitive and cognizant of is specifically to the trial design efforts, that typically it takes both internal and external constituencies to bring ideas to the table. So specifically, you might have individuals or leads within the clinical trial design team within the organization supporting those efforts, but at many times those individuals might reach out to external constituencies, consultants, or potentially even CROs to help support in those activities as well. And with that said, what you could do within the Salesforce or a platform is leverage both internal as well as external communities, and in order to coordinate the trial design components. Jim, anything else to add to that?
Yeah, I would just say that we'll also recognize that from a security standpoint, you wouldn't necessarily want to expose everything that's in the system to an external constituent that just has a very directed role in the process. So there's a tremendous amount of capabilities in that area where you're managing exactly who has access, and with that access, how much they're able to see. So a lot of controls on what I would call fit for purpose, especially with external users.
Thank you both. And then the last question says, you've shown the structure of gathering information. Is it possible to have my workflow automated around that structure? Approvals, reviews, etc.
Roman, you want to take that?
Yeah, I will take that. Yeah, definitely yes. So Salesforce is offering its own built-in like business process management tool where you can, using your mouse and clicks and no coding, build your business processes for approvals, reviews, or automate some like notifications, launch different processes like voting or whatever you want to have. So yes, it can be done, and moreover, it can be done with just like configuration using your mouse and clicks and not coding.
Great, thanks so much, Roman. Jenna, any other questions?
Roman? Yep, so that's the end of the questions. So unless anybody else has anything else, we will wrap this up. And just a thank you to Jim, Lior, and Roman for your presentation today, and everyone for taking the time to join. We will send out a recording of the webinar shortly to everyone who attended. And thanks a lot. Have a good day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.